Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Simon from Siphon TCG here, guys. Thank you guys again for coming to my channel once again. Allow me to grace your presence. We have episode 4 of Becoming the Best Kano, a series that I've enjoyed making so much. For those who don't know what this series is, I will catch you guys up. This is a series where you guys get to see the start of my journey of becoming a Kano player, and then you guys will see me slowly progress, learn things, and then transfer the things I've learned to you guys so you guys can follow along this journey with me. And what we're going to be talking about today is something that's been on my mind a while when it came to a few other decks. But then the Kano Discord, we've been talking a lot and watching each other play a lot of games. And this is something that I got brought up. We've seen a pitch stacking method which people have entertained. And I've heard rumors of the way someone pitch stacked. But I got to see it and hear it first person, and this has been a revelation, might be a bold term to use, but this pitch stacking style that I was shown is absolutely amazing. And the person that showed me this style, Mr. Frank, I'm just going to highlight this article here that they made on the 8th Times. If you guys want to check this out, I think every person that wants to play Kano should read this. It is chock full of just Kano knowledge in general, but obviously the main topic, and it's going to be one of the topics that we're talking about today, is pitch stacking and the fundamental principle of pitch stacking. So one of the things I've learned when it comes to pitch stacking with Kano and the difficulty of it is most people, when they first start playing Kano, the first revelation they learn is, oh, I don't want to just blind Kano all the time on my opponent's turn. Every single Kano's done it when they're new, because everyone's like, oh, I can just use these cards at instant speed, and they start pitching all these cards fiercely to Kano, and they do nothing. They do like 2 damage. And then their opponent goes back to their opponent's turn, their opponent has 5 cards in hand, and they're like, alright, use all these 5 cards to kill you? And the opponent goes like, well dang, I guess I have to block now. And they lose tempo that way. They lose tempo so quickly that way. So that's like the first building block that people need to learn. The second one that I feel like a lot of us Kano players had to learn was it's actually okay to block. You know, you start at 30 life, none of your spells individually do a whole bunch. A lot of times you're throwing 1 spell, maybe 2. It's just like, am I really excited about what I'm doing on my turn? Maybe if I have like 4 to 5 cards on my turn, I can just explode and like chunk my opponent for like 15. And while that can happen in very certain scenarios, these are not consistent things. Especially the way the deck is built with 33 blues. Your blues don't really deal damage. So if you're pocketing a bunch of cards hoping no damage, and you flip over blues or you're casting blues, well, you're not really gaining anything there either. And a lot of people can get to the science of Kano. One of my biggest things I like to do with every single deck is like, okay, is there a way we can break this deck down to a consistent science that a new player can pick up this deck and have some type of flow chart? Well, like for example with Bolton, it is block with 2 cards, keep a charge card, charge, go on with your day. And I actually do think a lot of decks can actually do something like that, be this little mid-range deck and just keep 2 cards and play this like value game. But I think with Kano, I think Kano actually gets to use something like that the best. You can block with 2 3 because a lot of the cards in Kano block 3. A lot of them do. You can block with 2 cards, keep 2 cards, Crucible, send 4 to 6 damage, and your opponent is not just going to take 6. If they just take 6-1 at one point, they are under threat of dying the whole entire game. Once your opponent's at 36, there's a lot of hands that just straight up kill, deterministically, right? And that's one of the things that Kano players get to learn is, okay, if I can just keep my left toe high, chip my opponent down to like 30, once I draw a combo, it's game, it's GG's, right? And I think the third one, which is what our main topic today, is pitch stacking. Now, a lot of people get told to pitch stack differently with Kano, and I do see some of the advantageous things that some of those pitch deck things, but the way that we've learned today is counting and numbers. And when I just say these two things, a lot of things was like, well, that doesn't really make sense. So if I say a thing to you, I'm just like flicking cards. Like, let me just like flick some cards, and you guys just hear me say something. Just want to do this for visual representation. You guys just see me go like this. Now, mind you, this is what's going on in my head, not out loud. If I just go like this. Gaze to tome, wildfire, 4 to kitchen. You may not, you're going to have zero clue what the heck I'm talking about. Or if you see 4 gaze, 2 tome, blaze, sonic boom, 2, 3. You have zero clue what any of that means. And what this is basically meaning is you look at every single one of the cards in your deck, and the way a lot of people are told to pitch stack is get rid of the reds early so you have the blues for your combo late game. That's not entirely correct. They're like, oh, just save all your power cards, and you'll surely win. Like, just like get rid of the blues, keep the reds so you actually can do damage. Well, that's not correct. Anytime you see a power card, just pitch it. Or something. Like, there's a lot of just misleading information when it comes to pitch stacking with Kano. But what we've discovered, like one of the best ways to pitch stack with Kano, is obviously you build around a certain number of cards. And these power cards that we're going to be using are things like, obviously, like Wildfire, things like Blazing, things like Lesson Lava. That stuff is obvious, right? That stuff is obvious. But what if I could tell you, right? What if I could tell you that there's more? There's cards that are in some moments more powerful than those cards because of what they can do throughout the whole entire turn. On the surface level, that doesn't make sense. And some of these cards I'm talking about, Tome of Aetherwind, Tome of Findel, Gaze the Ages. These are cards that when many players see this card, they immediately want to use it for immediate advantage. But if I tell you you can pitch deck a sequence of cards where you can see some of these cards in a late game scenario, draw upwards of 6 cards, have all the blue mana in hand, combo on top of your deck in the exact order that you know, and you can win deterministically no matter what your opponent has. All because you widen your range of power cards and then the way you use them in a very specific manner. And I think for the first time ever in my life with Kano, I Storm Striders in a Tome of Aetherwind from my arsenal. Just because these specific pitch stack that I went for. I got to draw these 2 specific cards. It was a blue and like an Eye of Ophidia. I pitched Eye of Ophidia to Kano. I opted those 2 immediately to the bottom. Revealed a Gaze of the Ages. Played the Gaze of the Ages. Held priority. Played a Snapback. Gaze of the Ages came back to my hand. I ended up opting 2 more cards to the bottom. Pitched the Gaze of Ages. Revealed a Gaze of the Ages. Played the Gaze of Ages. Bottom. Tome of Aetherwind into Tome of Findel. And then I knew my combo was some amount of cards under that. I couldn't remember exact. But I had all the cards in hand. All of them were blues. I had 2 epots on the field. And my opponent was just looking at me looking like I was spinning wheels. And I was just like, okay, they're just doing a bunch of actions. But no. I knew the moment I drew this certain hand, I knew where the large majority of cards were. And I knew, okay, my opponent has no way to win here because I have given myself a very specific turn or a set of turns back to back that they cannot win. And that all comes down to correct pitch stacking and tracking. Now, one of the things this article does say, and I do want to emphasize this with all this, You don't need to be a master of pitch deck. You don't need to know the top 20 cards, like card for card. You don't. If for some reason you do, and you can do that in a very sustainable manner, cool. Like, that is absolutely amazing. Good for you. But one of the things that we started doing, let me find it right here, is alright, we keep track of very powerful cards. So when you're starting your pitch deck, in the example here, right? This is the start of the pitch deck, is these two zaps, and these are going to be your trackers. Once you see zap zap back to back, okay, you know, okay, I have this stack that I specifically started. And in this example, it's zap zap 5. Now what does this 5 mean? You see this 5, you see this 2, you see this 2. What does that mean? Most of your blues don't matter. Like your zaps, your saps, your prognosticates, they don't matter. They're specifically to be a blue pitch. Right? So you don't need to remember, oh, I have 3 saps, 2 prognosticates together. Because they serve the same purpose of specifically being a blue pitch. And there's something you can break that down to. If it's 5 of those cards, and they're all just blue generics, 5. So now, we start our game, we pitch 2 saps. We know this is the start of our pitch stack that we intend to start. Then we pitched 5 blues that are whatever they are. 5. Next, we have a power card. We have a named card. Gaze. Gaze is something that we are intentionally pitching. So now in our head, I'm going to set up in our head, we go, okay, zap zap 5 gaze. We now know, once we start a pitch stack, we now know our top 8 cards. Then, we pitch another 2 blues. The blues don't mean nothing. So now it's zap zap 5 gaze 2. And then, it's tome. Right? Then it's 2. And here, I want you guys to see what this pitch stack is actually showing. Right? So we have 7 blues here. We have 7 blues. So that's not mean enough. But here, once we get here, here's where the cool stuff starts. When you play this Gaze of Ages, when you play this, and as long as you've played any blue, like let's say one of these cards right here in this 5 is just a 0 for 1. So now you play the Gaze, you'll opt 2 cards to the bottom, these 2 blues that don't mean anything. It'll return your hand. You're going to Kano. Where are you going to Kano into? Tome of Aetherwind. Now this could be Tome of Findel. Doesn't really matter, but let's just use Tome of Aetherwind here. We play the Tome of Aetherwind. We draw 2 blues. And then we draw our combo pieces, Blaze Fire. And here you're going to have other blues in hand. You're going to have other things stacked under this. And then you just can obliterate your opponent. So the way this would read out in your head would be Zap Zap 5, Gaze 2, Tome 2, Blaze Fire. And they make a very fantastic point here. This looks very intimidating at the start. Now, I've only started my journey, and it's still a little bit difficult for me. But I use a method they later talk about in this to help me out. It's a little bit simpler on the surface level, in my opinion, and it's easier to start off with. And it leaves a little bit less room for error. Right? So you can read this for phone number. How many people can memorize a phone number like that, or some type of code just like that, and they can recite it in their sleep? Like my social security number is no, I'm just kidding. But it took you a while to remember someone's phone number, but you can recite someone's phone number pretty easily. This is just like reciting someone's phone number. Zap Zap 5 Gaze 2 Tome 2 Blaze Fire. Obviously, you're going to want to slow this down in your head and be like, okay, Zap Zap 5 Gaze 2 Tome 2 Blaze Fire. And because we're using the shortcut of these blues being 5, 2, and 2, this shortens it from being Zap Zap Sap, 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 Prognostic, Prognostic, Gaze, Voltic, Gaze, well, not Gaze, but Random in Blue, Tome. Like, you can just see the difference there. And this method is absolutely wonderful. And this also does one other thing. It does one other thing. So yes, we now can track our pitch deck. We know what we're want our current cards. This also really has us practicing very good habits, which again, fun enough, this is literally what the next topic is. This really forces you not to just see, oh, power card, slam the power card down. Because there's a lot of times you just randomly, generically slamming a power card down. It's like playing Lexi. One individual Rain Razors by itself, a lot of times doesn't really do anything in the turn. Like, unless you have a very, very specific turn, which is just like playing a random tome. Doesn't always do a whole lot. But when you combine that Rain Razors and the Three of a Kind, oh, now your opponent's getting clapped. When you combine that Three of a Kind and Art of War, now you kind of see where I'm going. When you combine that Gaze of Ages and Tome to really have a very precise looking hand, and very be able to dig very deep into your deck. That's where really recognizing the power level of these cards and then abusing them, and saving for that second cycle to have a high velocity in second cycle. Because you have to think, how many decks in this format have high velocity in the second cycle, where they really, really benefit from in the second cycle? Not that just when they go to second cycle, they don't immediately lose like some aggro decks can. This deck excels. Like, once it sees its second cycle, it goes, rubs its hands again, and they know they're about to beat their opponent down. So I think understanding this form of pitch stacking, I think, is very, very useful. And the way I do it, and we will kind of scroll down here. I believe it is in here. Different strokes. So the way that this does it is this talks about using them like rooms. So the way I do it is I label a few rooms in the house, like row rooms, so like bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, hall, living room. And I will pitch like specific sets of cards. So like I'm like, okay, here is a Stir the Aether Wind, a blue into a Swell Tidings, and like another blue. Alright, so I'm like, okay. Then I'll pitch right under that, like lesson, uh, wildfire, just some other forms of combos. And then the moment I get like just a bunch of like mana cards, like a bunch of blues or cards that don't really matter, like one random like Aether Quicken with a bunch of blues isn't actually like, okay, this is the turn. That turn those two turns I named previous are like cards that are aiming to strip my opponent's hand and gain tempo. So once I'm done with that sort of set of cards, it can be a set of 4 cards, it can be a set of 8 cards, it can be a set of 12 cards. Once it's done, I lock that in, and I say in my head, bedroom. And I know that's where the starts. So let's say this is, we'll go back up here. And let's say this is the start of mine. And let's say this is like the room I want to make. So the way I would say it, and I would say zap zap bedroom. And what zap zap bedroom is, so no, I won't, this allows me not to have to remember this whole entire thing. And obviously it is very beneficial to learn this whole entire thing. But if I stack with intent, that's where stacking with intent goes. Intentionally pitching power cards together to be able to use them together late game. If I go zap zap bedroom and I see zap zap, I know, okay, I already know what I pitch stacked, so I know what I pitch stacked. I should generally know how it should flow, and I can go from there. So I go zap zap bedroom. So then let's say I get my next hand, and it's like again the stir, the blue, the swell tidings, yada yada yada, and then it's like a set of 8 cards. And let's say the top 2 cards where it starts is like, I don't know, 2 blues, a tome into an eye, and then I'm 2 cards, and then that's where the swell tidings and stuff comes. So I can go Prog Sap, Hall. So now I go prog 2-2 bedroom, prog, snap, hall. And if there's cards in the middle, so let's say that I close that room, but I immediately want to open up and start a different room because maybe it is, again, it is there to keep tempo, but like I wouldn't be able to maybe string all those hands together because maybe I might accidentally draw like half of the cards here of that room of the start of the stack, and then I can't really draw the other half, so like the hand doesn't really work. So then we have bedroom, we have hall, right? And then we just constantly keep doing that. So kind of going back to what I was just saying, if you have dead cards in the middle, like let's say you have Blessing with Aether in the middle of that, and that card just does not matter. But you don't want to lock into a certain room because it doesn't flow with the cards in that room. You in my example, so let's say the Aether's in the middle, and that's the only card splitting these two rooms, right? You can go Zap Zap Bedroom, 1, Prog Sap, Hall. And then you can keep going and keep going and then keep going as long as you want. Like, realistically, there doesn't need to be that many cards, that many sets, because once you hit a certain part of your second cycle, you should just be killing. Unless you see your combos, like, super late. Like, there are times if you see, like, Wildfire, like, Blazing super late in your first cycle, you either A, like, if he was able to stop your board, you can just kill him in your first cycle, or B, sometimes you do just have to pitch stack very late, but then those games are going to be hard. But Kano can see a lot of cards, because at worst, if he has 4 blues in hand, he can just use those 4 cards, remove 4 cards, and then technically that's 8 cards gone, even though like the 4 go back, they're gone from the top of the deck, and you can just accelerate your hand that way. But I actually wanted to talk about this next, and it's just funny that I immediately scrolled to this. So this goes into the card counting. So this is another aspect that you can, and I encourage you to incorporate into your Kano pitch stacking. It's knowing exactly when. So knowing when it starts is amazing. But what if you pitch Zap Zap, and then like 20 cards in, you see, well, you wouldn't see Zap Zap, but like you just see a set of cards that are like identical, and maybe you don't remember. It's like, oh wait, was it Zap Zap? Was it Prognosticate Zap? Like, and for some reason you do forget. What this now goes into is card counting. So if you have a 60 card deck, every card you see you count. So in this example here, you draw 4 cards, 4. You have seen 4 cards from the top of your deck. You pitch a card to Kano, you banish that card, that's 5. Because that's a card being removed from the first cycle. Even if it goes back into the deck, like a card from your hand goes back in the deck for some reason, as long as it's been removed from the top of the deck in some way, either being drawn, being milled, whatever it is, you count it. So in this example, I have just a set of cards here. So we have a 60 card deck. We'll be like, in our head, 4. Now this will tie into like the naming that you do, whatever naming method you choose. Or if you don't want to actually do the naming method like in your head, but you just want to pitch and then know whenever you reach it. This is also another way you can, if you just want to do this by itself, you go like 4. And you can block with 2 cards, play 2 cards in your hand, boom. These 4 cards are gone, no matter what. They're gone, theoretically. So then you'll draw another 4 cards. 8. You've seen the top 8 cards of your 60 card deck. Let's say your opponent doesn't do nothing, maybe you block with 1 card. You got 3 cards in your hand. On your turn, you pitch to Kano, you banish a card. Well, it's a card being removed. That's 9. You banish another card. 10. And then so on and so forth. And you just constantly keep counting. What you can also do is whenever you start stacking your combo with intent. Now, this might be a little obvious to your opponent, but realistically, there may not be anything they can do about it. If you want to start, like let's say on turn 3, you actually start, like you see your first wildfire, or you see your first tome and 2 blues, then you can actually start it there. So what you would do there is count the cards on your deck. So count cards in banish, count cards on the battlefield, count cards in graveyard, count cards in hand. And let's say that adds up to 16, right? So now you would just immediately start at 16. You'll play those cards out, you draw 4, 20. And you can just keep going there. And here's the thing. This is free card counting. This is legal card counting. You go to the casino, you can't do no card counting and get caught. And here, you're card counting and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And it's such a powerful tool. I remember talking to Pontiff, who's, that's his nickname on Discord. He said this took him, he's been doing this for about months, but it took him about 2 months to really get this down. And like the final thing I'm going to talk about here is that, and it's what I told him, I was like, that sounds very intimidating to the average player. And it sounded intimidating to me, I'm not going to lie. But this goes into, like, chess logic, video game, this goes into video game logic, every single piece of logic. If there's anything on the micro or macro level you can do, and it's a free thing to do, even if it gives you 0.05% chance to win, like extra to win. Let's say in this matchup, if you just play kind of sloppily and you just play your cards out with no intent, you have a 50% chance to win, right? But let's say if you pitch stack with intent, but for some reason it only makes you go up to 51. It gives you a 1% boost. If you choose not to do that, just because it gives you 1%, you are just wrong. If it is a free resource, now if it comes at a sacrifice to something, if you can't do it, you can't do it. But it is something free, something consistent, something that just guarantee raises your percentage to win, and you choose not to do it, you are just wrong. This pitch stacking with Kano, if you choose not to pitch stack with Kano, you are just wrong. And this is a thing that I've tried to tell a lot of people. Because a lot of people that play like aggro decks are like, why would I ever need to pitch stack? The game is just going to last 3 turns. Now I get that. Now maybe if your deck has constant shuffle effects, like constant, like Katsu, and if you're religiously like pitching the Katsu, and you say, well, there's no reason for me to pitch stack, I will concede that specific point. If you say it largely doesn't change my result, because I'm constantly randomizing my deck. But even still, like in a deck like Fi, when people don't pitch stack with intent, they're like, oh, I just see this blue in my hand, cool, pitch the blue. Next turn, I see a blue in my hand, pitch the blue. I see a blue in my hand, all 2 blues, pitch both blues. And then if they are unable to kill your opponent, because they're suppress a lot of your damage, and then you get to second cycle, and then you draw your hand, and it's 3 blues and a red, and then your opponent's still like 15, 20, well now you're just like, my hand does 5 damage. I can't do anything with this. And then you're forced to like probably make some very suboptimal plays just to push through any damage. Or you're forced to block. Whenever you draw at the end of your turn and you draw those 3 blues and a red, where you're like, well, I have no way to actually win this turn cycle, I might as well block. Again, you just lost tempo, you just lost percentage points because you didn't want to pitch correctly. When I talk to people about pitch stacking with dash, they're like, how do you pitch stack with control dash? And I'm like, it is not as obvious and easy as you think, because it changes from game to game. There are games where I want all the reds on my deck immediately. So if I see a red, even if that turn cycle is tempo negative, but I know it will give me percentage points in that late game that I know I can hit, Dude, I'll play that Raging Onslaught in a very suboptimal thing, even if it means I don't establish anything on the board. It's all about that second cycle and making sure you have the best chance to win in a worst case scenario. If every single deck can just 100% of the time kill in the first cycle, dude, hands off, dude, cool. If we were like in a turn 1, turn 2 format, which I don't know how that would ever happen, but let's say it happened, dude, my hands off, I'm like, dude, cool, don't pitch check, pitch whatever you want. But that is not the case. You would never go to an Odin player and be like, dude, why are you pitch checking the Oakenode with all those Earth and Ice cards? They would look at you like you're crazy. Because they know when they draw these set of cards, they get tempo. Unless their opponent hits them, like, is literally him for lethal, when they go Oakenode, Fuse, the game is over from something like that, right? And that's pitch stacking with intent. In Kano's case, knowing intent. And here's the thing, you can actually do this with any hero. You can do this with any hero. Like in Dash, I usually know, like, and I usually only do this in the draw matchups specifically, but there might be some matchups I can do it, but I just haven't. I know usually when I pitch stack, because what I do in Dromai, I pitch stack Mechanologist cards together. I do my best to make sure I have a bunch of them together. Because what you can do, because yeah, a lot of your boost cards don't individually hit for a lot. But if I can go, let's say I have all my items like already loaded. If I have 4 blues in my hand, like some of that mana is just going to be redundant. I'm not going to need all of that mana. So I can go something like, pitch a card, play this zipper hit, boost. Oh, it has go again. Cool. Boost this other card. Go again. I have 2 cards left in hand. Play this like boost card from Arsenal or something. Cool. Now this other card, shoot all my items. It allows you to have a very, very wide turn for a control deck. And while the boost cards in particular are impressive, it usually just, again, comes up if you have an excess amount of mana. It can really, like, get you all the time. Because also, this allows you to clear dragons, so then you can send all of your pistol damage at the Dromai. Same thing against Odom. I just think people need to understand that just because something is hard, one doesn't mean it's impossible. Doesn't mean it is possible. It is definitely possible. You just have to work at it. And just because something hard doesn't mean it's bad. I'm never going to tell you that pitch stacking you're going to learn in a day or two. I'm never going to tell you that pitch stacking will raise your 50-50 matchup to a 75%. I'm never going to tell you that. Because again, varies from game to game, varies from hero to hero. Things are object to change. But the thing I can tell you, it is something free to do. Pitch stacking with intent doesn't involve anything besides mentality, understanding power cards, and just the willingness to save them. And not just blur them all out. And I guarantee you it will raise your percentage points. Even if it's not by 20%. Even if it's not by 30%. Even if it's not by 5%. Even if it raises it by 1%. And it's something free to do. You should do it. You should. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Becoming the Best Kano. I know we talked about something very intense here, but I challenge any Kano player watching this that does not do a method exactly like this. If they want to come up with a method similar to this, or they want to try this themselves, please do so. It has already been helping me a lot, and I've only been doing it for about 2 weeks now, and I've already seen vast improvement. Because what this also does, just makes you play better. This doesn't. It makes you be like, I play all the cards, and then you end up failing. This is like, okay, I'm making sure I have some type of safety valve for late game if it goes there, and a lot of times it will go there. If you guys enjoyed this video, you guys want to see more, make sure you guys comment down below, like, favorite, subscribe. This has been your boy Siphon from Siphon TCG. Peace.